Welcome to another episode of Buckless Coach Web Show. Well, hello, this is Cindy Lee, your host over at Bucket List Coach Web Show Live. I'm going to introduce my guests in just 1 minute. But first off, if you are here on Facebook and you like to comment, please go to StreamYard.com/Facebook. That way both of the platforms marry and we can see your name. So a really quick promo. If you subscribe, comment, and share this very video, either share it to Facebook or share it to LinkedIn. You got to make sure to comment first. I will gift you a 5-night hotel stay. Simply check out 3nighthotelgiveaway.com. And of course, today is Cyber Monday. A big shout out to my friend over at Top Gun Fans. I created this great gift for a friend, and I just cannot wait for them to get it, all Top Gun related. And of course, I am an ambassador with National Day Calendar. Make sure you go to nationaldaycalendar.com. You can also follow them on all the social media networks. So I have my friend Yogi today. We're talking military aviation. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Cindy, how are you? Thanks for having me. Glad to be here. Really appreciate it.
I'm doing great now that you're here. So I just want to do a quick shout out. I'll shout them out at the end as well. But a big shout out to Taco. You were on his show a couple weeks ago, and I must say it was a fabulous show. Oh, almost 2 hours, and I was there the whole time just listening. So let's talk aviation. Tell my audience how you got involved in the military.
I'm one of those guys. I always was interested in the military as far back as I can remember. Anyone who knows me that I grew up with remembers me wanting to be a pilot. With social media, you can connect with old friends from school. So I have friends from junior high and high school who remember me sitting in the back of class drawing airplanes. As far back as I can remember, I wanted to fly, and then I had an unusual interest in the military. I don't come from a military family at all. Grew up with a single mom. Mom was a typical Jewish mom. Probably wanted a doctor or a lawyer. But it was just always something I was fascinated with. Saw the sands of Iwo Jima as a kid and was hooked on becoming a Marine and a Marine aviator, and was lucky enough after a few attempts to get accepted in the Marine officer program. Got my commission in the Marine Corps as a lieutenant. Went to the basic school in Quantico, finished. Unfortunately, back in 84, 85, the Marine Corps had too many pilots on all ends of the pipeline. And I know you're familiar with naval aviation, so you can talk to some of your friends. At the RAG, Replacement Air Group, they had too many pilots, backlog waiting to go to flight school. Long story short, the Navy happened to be short some pilots, and the fact that Marine officers are naval officers on steroids, basically, they offered the opportunity for a bunch of us to swap over to the Navy and get to flight school. The other option was to either not fly at all or wait 2 years to get to flight school. And a bunch of us like me were panicked over our eyes going bad. At 23, you thought you could get cataracts by looking at something the wrong way. You might get poked in the eye by a stick. So you're panicked that you might lose that 20/20 vision. So a bunch of us took that option to go over to the Navy. After a few months, I was discharged from the Marine Corps. Took one step to the right, sworn as a Navy ensign, and a week later, I was in Pensacola at Aviation indoctrination. Fast forward a year and a half later, I get my wings as a naval aviator, flew helicopters, and spent the next 6.5 years flying CH-53s. I was stationed in the Philippines for 3 years, so I flew all over the Western Pacific, then came back to Norfolk, Virginia, finished up there. And in early 91, I thought I wanted to get out and go do some other things, maybe get in the corporate world, kind of fell into that grass is always greener mindset, I had a new baby. I had my second child, and I didn't want to be gone. And so I started working in corporate America for Airborne Express Corporation as a management trainee in New York, back in New York City where I grew up. And that was the work. I knew I'd made a mistake right away. Was kind of, I tried to get back to the Navy, but they were like, too bad, so sad, you're out. Wow. So I was, I was struggling a little bit, lamenting my poor decision, and decided to shotgun my paperwork out to all the Guard, Reserve, Naval Reserve, Marine Reserve units, see which one bit first. The Army Guard bit first, and I, about a few months later, I became a warrant officer and was flying Hueys in the New York Army National Guard, which was awesome. It was a lot of fun. It was a great time. Did that for about 5 years. And then out on the east end of Long Island in West Hampton Beach, there's an Air National Guard unit that's a combat search and rescue unit. They were very hard to get into, very rarely had openings. I found out about an opening through a friend. I applied. I was accepted. Kind of swapping over from guard to guard isn't a big deal. Then was a captain in the Air Force in the Air National Guard, flying the H-860 Pavehawk. And about a year and a half into that, I was offered the opportunity to go back on active duty, which I did, and then spent the next 13 years in the Air Force flying combat search and rescue. My timing, depending on who you ask, couldn't have been better. I got in the Air Force in 98, did some early deployments to Turkey and Kuwait and things like that. And then 9/11 happened, and I spent the next decade basically back and forth to war. But, it was a great career. I joke I had a very interesting and highly undistinguished military career. Not many people can say they were in 4 branches of the military and flew helicopters in 3. So I take a little pride in that. But, I'd say in the long run, I did some stuff, but not as much as others, and just was really happy and privileged to be there. And, I was very happy to serve in combat and to, serve my country in difficult times and actually put the mission to practice, which was saving lives, which we got to do. I mean, the Air Force combat rescue community, the call sign Pedro or Jolly to any, most guys out there in the fight is familiar, and they know that meant somebody was going to come get them no matter what. So it was a great, great gig.
So I'm going to pull up the helicopter. So I'm going to pull it up right here. So tell me about this baby. So Stallion.
Well, yeah, that's the CH-53. That's a D model. I flew the E model. That's what I flew in the Navy. We did, we did all kinds of stuff, trash hauling, infills, exfills. Mostly we brought stuff to and from the ship. We basically did what's called vertical onboard delivery. We'd fly out to the ship. We could carry a lot of stuff. Our max gross weight was 73.5. I don't know, the newer models may even be able to carry more. So we would bring mail, food, anything, troops, whatever, back and forth to the ship. Every now and then we do some special ops stuff, or when I was in the Philippines, we were constantly taking the Marines from the Marine barracks at QB Point into the embassy in Manila because they were having some troubles in the Philippines when I was there, things like that. It was a great gig. It was fun. But the aircraft I cut my teeth on, if you want to bring it out, or the aircraft where I went to war with, is the H-860 Pavehawk. That's wow. Really, that's kind of my best girlfriend. Cause, I went into harm's way with her and she brought me home every time. So she definitely has the soft spot in my heart. But I got very lucky. I got to fly some iconic aircraft. That aircraft was an amazing aircraft to fly. Just beautiful, fast, maneuverable, could carry, tons and tons of stuff. It's a beautiful machine. Then I got to fly the iconic Huey, which again was a gift. That aircraft is literally an icon in the helicopter world, and to be able to fly that, and then to fly the Pavehawk in combat and save lives with that aircraft. Again, I've been a very lucky guy. I mean, I've gotten to do some cool stuff and fly some amazing aircraft. So I don't take my luck or my privilege of being able to do that lightly.
Well, let's talk crazy stories. What are some crazy, close calls that you've had?
Well, the most notable mission I think for me was on March 3rd, 2002. It was during Operation Anaconda in Afghanistan. Um, uh, you know, if you're familiar with that, that was when the Army infilled a large number of troops to try to cut off and capture or kill, kind of finish some of the Taliban units that were there. I won't bore people with my opinions and details, but it went to Shiza pretty quickly. And things started going south fairly quickly. It wasn't going as planned, which no plan survives first contact anyway. But long story short, about a 2 or 3 days into it, we got involved because we really weren't involved in the original planning and stuff. And then we flew up to a FARP, a forward arming and air refueling point, a little to the east of where the fight was going on. And we were sitting there, and a lot of shot up aircraft were coming in, a lot of wounded. Experienced my first 8-point something earthquake there, sitting around. I remember walking back to the helicopter and everything started going like this, and I was going, "Oh man, I'm really dehydrated. I need to drink some water." And all of a sudden, somebody screamed earthquake. But we were in this large flat plane, so it wasn't a big deal. But if you research it, that earthquake was pretty big, and I think it might have did some damage. So then they asked us if we would go try to get some wounded guys out that nobody been able to get out that day. The aircraft had all been shot off the LZ, and they asked us if we would give it a try. So my flight lead, Tom Cahill, who got the Silver Star that night, said, "Yeah, we'll give it a shot." He asked us. It was kind of funny. It's like one of those movie moments. He goes, "Look, guys, if we do this, there's a really good chance we're going to get effed up. Does anybody have a problem with that?" You know what I mean? And we're all standing around. And I remember thinking to myself, well, yeah, I kind of do have a problem with that. But, what can you do? You got to go. You're not going to say no. So we all said, yeah, let's give it a shot. And it was, you hear the term fog of war. That was really prevalent that night because we were working 5 radios, talking to our bosses who were in Saudi Arabia at the time, at the Combined Air Operations Center, our bosses back at Artak at Kandahar, the folks we thought were out in the field. It's just a lot of confusion getting out to where we thought these guys were. And it was the middle of a fight. So, it was a lot of little fights going on everywhere. We would take fire from places. It was just really confusing. We were talking to a JTAC, a Joint Terminal Attack Controller, who we thought were co-located with the wounded guys trying to get their location and get to where they were. Just a lot of confusion. And then we landed in one LZ and nobody was there. And then we started getting mortared and shot at, so we ran away from there. Then we landed in another LZ and these soldiers jumped on and we thought they were the wounded guys. And then my PJs in the back are like, "Hey, sir, none of these guys are wounded." They just thought we were coming to exfil them. So we had to throw them out of the helicopter, kind of like that scene in Apocalypse Now where the guy's like, "I'm not going," where the guy has to drag him out of the helicopter. We had to manhandle these poor guys out of the helicopter. Oh, it's kind of comical now. I think at the time, for them, certainly it wasn't funny. And we felt kind of bad about it, but we couldn't take them and go find them because we were looking for 3 wounded folks. So it just took a while. We had bingo fuel. We had to make the decision: are we going to stay here and try to get these guys or go home? We decided we'll ride it out and do what we got to do to get these guys out. We finally found them. We landed. It's just the middle of a whole fight. We have these pararescue guys, the PJs in the back. They went out and did their thing. We had whole blood. One of the first times we were taking whole blood into combat on a helicopter. So we're able to, give these guys the assistance they needed. PJ I was with are so crazy. They wanted to stay there and stay in the battle with the Army guys. And, because we're like, "No, you got to get on the aircraft. We got to go." And we ended up finding these guys and we got back to the FARP. I think we had 8 minutes of gas. It was just a crazy night. You just learn that, that's where you learn you got to solve the problem. In combat, like anything else, you're faced with a problem. You have to break it down to that, and you go, okay, how are we going to solve this? How are we going to overcome this obstacle that's being thrown at us to get this done? And it was a good example of watching really smart people think on the fly and do what we needed to do to get the job done. And we were able to get 3 guys out, and kind of a little bit by the seat of our pants, because obviously it didn't go the way we planned, but we were able to do it. And, like I said, my pilot that night, Tom Cahill, got the Silver Star, well deserved. And,
Wow.
It was a great night. It was to save 3 guys in combat. That's a really great feeling. It was scary. There's no doubt. It was, afterwards, it was my first time in combat, first time getting shot at. I remember first time I saw tracers coming my way. I'm like, what? You take it a little personal. You're like, what I do to these guys? Do I owe them money or something? Like, why are they mad at me? But you finally, you kind of just get your head in the game and do the job. All those cliches, training takes over. You're too busy to be scared. All that, they're kind of true. You're just kind of busy doing what you need to do. And we got 3 guys out that night. It was great, but it was definitely crazy. I mean, at the time, it was just chaos, and anyone who's flown an aircraft in combat, or I'm sure your listeners are people and it doesn't matter if they're helo guys, fighter guys. There's just all kinds of stuff going on the radio. You got weather. In our case, it was really, really dark, like zero illumination. So even with the goggles, it was very challenging. All kinds of, and you just kind of thrown into it. You're not even in the frying pan. You're in the fire, and you just got to figure out what you're going to do. And
Wow.
I was lucky to fly with the crew members I had and the guys in the other aircraft. It was a 2-ship, and I was lucky to be around some guys who really were meat eaters and knew how to get it done. I feel like I was along for the ride a little bit on that, but it was great.
Let's talk about your call sign.
Well, my call sign is actually one of my proudest military achievements because, as you obviously know, most call signs are given because of something dopey somebody's done, right? Well, when I got in the Navy, when I got to my first squadron, I tried it and it worked. I said, I'll just say my call sign is Yogi, and I'll get a name tag that says Yogi, and maybe they won't give me a new name at the naming ceremony. Well, that worked, right? So I went with that. And then, so for the rest of my military, well, in the Army, you don't have call signs. So that was no biggie. And then when I got to the Air Force, I was like, oh, yeah, I got to stick with this. So I put Yogi on my name tag, my Air Force name tag, everything. And so I basically orchestrated my call sign throughout my career, which is really one of my proudest military achievements, because if I had gotten a call sign for all the stupid things I've done, I can only imagine what kind of horrible call sign I would have had. It wouldn't have been flattering, I can assure you. So my call sign is actually one of my proudest military achievements, because I was able to orchestrate that and not have to, I mean, I used to throw up in flight school. Who knows what my call sign could have been, vomit, puker, something like, if I look over my career and all the dopey stuff I've done, and how many times I've stood in front of the commander doing a rug dance, getting a piece of my hindquarters chewed off, I can only, the possibilities are endless for a call sign I wouldn't have been happy with. So I was lucky. I took a shot. I went for it. And I think nobody expected anybody to do that, and I think a lot of guys, they're naive. They think they're going to get a cool call sign, right? They think like they're going to get named in the squadron and they're going to be that one guy who did something really cool or something that everybody's impressed by. So they'll get a cool call sign. They don't realize most of the time it's for something you did stupid or some calamity that happened to you. So I'm pretty happy. I was lucky. I just don't think anyone expected me to take a shot, of just a new JO reporting to the squadron. I just thought they didn't think I'd have the nads to go ahead and take that shot. So I did.
Well, let's talk about another story. So tell my audience a crazy story of when you got in trouble. Like, what did you do that you got in trouble?
Oh man, there's so many times. Well, okay, here's one. So this was when I was in the Navy. We just got back for deployment, and we're having I forget the actual event. It was, but the wives were there, and it was, I think it might have been the Christmas party. But we had just got back. One of the cadets just got back from overseas. So we thought it would be a cool idea to hire a male stripper for the wives at the party. And we thought it would be fun. Most of our wives would appreciate it, right? So the dinner's over, and this guy comes out. We had pretended he was going to do some sort of musical act, and then he started stripping and blah, blah, blah. Well, the XO and his wife were fairly religious. They didn't appreciate it. The guy never got to do his thing. Most of the wives were pretty upset. Most of the wives had a really good sense of humor. So they were upset that the show didn't happen, right? And then the culprits, the instigators of this idea, had to explain ourselves why we thought that would be a good idea. That was one time, where just we got scolded a little for our lack of judgment. But, I think it was a good idea to this day. And most of the wives, honestly, when it started, it was really cool because most of the wives rushed up there, got their chairs, asking us for money, blah, 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 blah. But then as it got into it, there was enough people who weren't happy for it that plan never came to fruition.
Wow.
That would be one time. There were other notables. I was stationed in the Philippines for 3 years. There was all kinds of scams going on. It was great. And, this is a kind of a different military back then too. So it was like right before Tailhook, and you could just it was a much more work hard, play hard environment. So, and being over in the PI and I had sailors working for me. A lot of these guys, like I had one of my petty officers ran a cockfighting ring on the side, because that's how they gamble in the Philippines. He was making, who knows how much money he was making with this cockfighting ring, and just back then you had leave papers, right, where it was the three, maybe the old timers will remember it was 3 copies of your leave papers, right? You kept one, admin got one. Well, our guys for $20 would burn your leave papers. So guys would spend 3 years on the Philippines, go home on leave 2-3 times a year, and leave going back to the States with 95 days of leave on the books, things like that. So, it was a little different. It was a little different time, and it was, definitely much more of a work hard, play hard type thing. So, a lot of this stuff isn't really G-rated, just some, it was just a fun time. And San Miguel beer, anyone who's been in the Philippines, San Miguel beer, I think when I was there in the late 80s, I think it was like the equivalent of 30 cents a bottle, and San Miguel, and they didn't have the same regulations. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, so someone will probably correct me. The domestic beer in the Philippines wasn't regulated. So like each bottle could have a different potency, right? And then they manufactured San Miguel for export, like to the United States, and had to meet the import regs for the United States. But you could knock out, you could just drink San Miguel. You could go out and you couldn't spend the money you had over there. And then when my wife came over and I had a yard boy, a seamstress, a maid. You live like it's like those old movies from colonial India. You just you walk around like you have your own little fiefdom. But it was awesome. The Filipino people are awesome. Some of the greatest, nicest people in the world, and it was a beautiful place, and it was funny. Some of us are a little more adventurous than others. There's people who never left the base and they hated it. You know, it's like, I hate this place. That I'm like, because and then my wife is a Navy brat and she grew up in Africa. My father was stationed. My father-in-law had been stationed in Africa. He was a Navy chief, a communicator, and he had been stationed in Africa almost 8 of his 20-year career. So she grew up there. So when she came to the Philippines, there was no culture shock for her. You know, take her out in town to the market. She would, you know, and she grew up. She had a maid. It was in Ethiopia and Eritrea, and so she had a local maid that basically raised her. So when we'd go to the local market, she was all about I thought it was so cheap over there. I didn't haggle for anything. I was like, oh, this is good. And my wife would be like, no, we can get this cheaper. I'm like, it's $2. She said, it doesn't matter. They're taking advantage, you know? And so she adapted perfectly, which was awesome. And I loved it there. It was a really cool place. You know, I to this day, one of my favorite places on earth is the Philippines. And yeah, I mean, I had a great time. I like I said, where else can you travel all over the world? You know, people think the military is this horrible, hard life, and it can be. And, you know, you'll get your heart broken for sure. But, I mean, I've seen a good part of the world. I've gotten to do some amazing things, work with some amazing people. So it's just been the greatest. I consider my military service a gift. I tell people that. And they look at me like I'm crazy, but it was a gift for me.
That's
it really
awesome.
Was, you know. I was a city kid from
they really serve in the military, but I live near Travis Air Force Base, so that's my love for the Air Force. And I actually worked civil service on a submarine during the time of the whole Flashdance thing, and I work with welders. So a lot of the coworkers used to call me Flashdance.
Oh, cool. Oh, yeah. That's true. Yeah, I'm thinking. I remember. Yeah, I'm thinking of that. That's pretty cool.
So this is something that I love to do, and I'm going to pay it forward again for Taco. So I already did it with another podcaster, Michael. And so what I want you to do today, if you're comfortable, I want you to do a minute testimony on Taco, and I'll send it to him. That way he could have that for his podcast.
Sure. I mean, Taco was an awesome Marine aviator, C-130 pilot, good guy, involved with a lot of things that help veterans and the aviation community. You know, he's involved with Rebel Scum and Ragtag, Rotor to Airline Group, which helps helo pilots. His organization designed to help helo guys get on the airline track. They just had their big convention in San Diego. He's involved with that. His podcast is awesome because he has some amazing guests on there. You know, I eat this kind of stuff up because I work in Yuma 2 weeks a month and I live in Vegas. So I'm constantly doing that commute back and forth. So on my drives, I'm listening to podcasts, Taco. You know, I'm going to be listening to your stuff now, some of the other podcasts that I like to listen to, or books on tape, things like that. So I eat that stuff up. And he has a great podcast, great guests. You know, when you look at the people he has on, I'm just humbled that he asked me to be on. You know, I just, look at some of the war fighters he's had on there, some of the legends, literally legendary aviators and people he's had on. So to be asked to come on a show like that and to be in that company is really humbling because, you know, these are people I've looked up to that I've heard about. So I really appreciate it. And it's always good to talk to someone who understands your deal. You know, he's a fellow pilot. Even in the course of the interview, you could tell he started telling me stories of similar incidents. So he's just a good guy, man. Just a really good guy and a lover of aviation and military aviation. And as am I. So to be able to talk to guys like that, like-minded folks is always fun. You know, even in my job now, I'm an EMS helicopter pilot I call it my actor day job because what I've been trying to do since I retired is pursue an acting career, which I've had some minimal success at. But in the meantime, I got to make a living. I'm an EMS helicopter pilot. And, but even then, you know, I'm not around the kind of guys I'm used to. So to be able to talk to a guy like Taco is just like being back in the ready room or back in the squadron.
Exactly.
You know, military aviators, we may have differences depending on branch of the service and stuff. But if you get a bunch of us in the room, we're going to talk with our hands and we're all going to be best friends within 5 minutes. so he's that kind of guy. He is a guy that you like him immediately. So within 5 minutes, you're friends with him.
Exactly. So when I called him, I found him because one of my guests, who is a F-14 pilot, he told me all about him. He actually shared the video because he was coming on my show, and I'm like, wow, I think I had to call Taco. And I don't think I was even talking to him 5 minutes. It was just instant. Yeah, he's just such a great guy, and his podcast is amazing. Tall Tales.
It's awesome. And again, I can't thank you enough for having me on. It's an honor and a privilege, and I appreciate it. I don't know why people find my story interesting. I think it's just kind of, it is what it is. But some people kind of think it's interesting, and I don't mind. I'll run my mouth for a cup of coffee. It's fine.
Well, you make the most of the dash. You've made the most of the dash. It's that time from when you're born until you pass away. I mean, you've done so much in your career, and now what you're doing is really admirable. So thank you for what you're doing now, even.
It beats working. I mean, they pay me to fly helicopters, and I do it so I don't have to get a real job. People always I love people oh, it's so great. I'm like, listen, I'm doing it because I don't want to have to get a real job. Most of my adult life, I've avoided real jobs. And that's I'm hoping to take that till the last stretch.
So do you have one last story, and then we could do some more shout outs, and then we'll close out?
Let me think. Well, okay. So here's kind of a cool story. So again, back in the Navy, we are flying. We're taking people from the World Business Council, which I don't know a lot about it, but I think you had to have a company that had X million dollars of income to be able to be in the World Business Council and blah, blah, blah. I remember we had the CEO of a few big companies on board, Waste Management, I remember, and a few others. And so we're flying out to the ship, and on the back of my helmet, I had Yogi. And this guy's sticking his head in the cockpit, and he's talking to me, and he goes, so Yogi, you know who Yogi Berra is? I'm like, of course. I grew up in New York. I'm a Yankees fan. Of course I know who he is. He goes, you want to meet him? I'm like, sure, I'd love to meet Yogi Berra. He's like, all right, he's right here. He goes, I said, you're full of shit. I just didn't pay attention to him. About 5 seconds later, Yogi Berra sticks his head in the cockpit, right? And we're talking to him. I have an autograph to Yogi from Yogi. I never framed it. It's just sitting fold up pencil that I wrote on my kneeboard. I've never framed it or anything. And yeah, I mean, that was a cool story. That was I completely wasn't expecting it. Just flying these big shots out to the ship so they could see the cat. It was one of those your tax dollars at work type thing where they take all these dignitaries and give them the VIP treatment on the aircraft carrier, and we were just the bus service basically, but that was really cool. He was a really nice guy. He was with the Texas Rangers at the time, but still, he'll always be known for being a Yankee as far as I'm concerned. And, I'm a lifelong Yankees fan, so that was really cool.
Go Dodgers. That was
definitely, yeah. I don't want to get I won't get into
we won't go there. That's for another show.
Yeah. I end all baseball arguments like this. The Yankees are still the winningest team in baseball, and they still have the best record in baseball so far, unsurpassed. Not the rest of the New York teams, not so much, but the Yankees still can hold their heads up high.
Wow. One of the things I'm thinking of is I would love to have you and your wife on to talk about Philippines, because that's one of the things actually that's on my bucket list. I have a friend who's from Philippines. She lives in the Bay Area in San Francisco, but she's actually going to hook me up with a orphanage there, because I don't have children, so I do a lot of orphanage work in Mexico, and then I want to look for other countries as well. So I would love to have you guys to talk about food, culture, all that.
My wife and I are separated right now. I don't know how she feels about being in the same room with me. We might have to let things cool down a little bit, but we'll see. We'll see.
Well, awesome.
I don't know.
And I'm definitely having you on again. We're going to talk story after story after story.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time and really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me.
Thank you. So let's do some shout outs. Who would you like to shout out today?
Oh man, now you put me on the spot. Are they personal shout outs, or are they, honestly,
your
I like give.
career, personal, yeah, however you want to shout out to.
My wife, who was, despite our differences, the greatest mom, and put up with probably with me a lot longer than she should have. My kids, my grandkids, my family's my heroes. They put
That's
up with a
awesome.
lot with me, and I didn't realize the effect a lot of the life I was leading had on them. And sometimes when you're caught up in it, you're at war. We're been at war for 20 years, and for a decade of those 20, that was my focus. And so they're my heroes. My shout out to my kids. My wife Karen, my kids Katie and Sarah, my grandkids Morrison, Audrey, Holden, and Hunter. That's my crew right there, man. And I love the grandpa thing, and blessed that my kids live close by. Both of them live no more than 10 minutes from me. So I see my grandkids all the time, and I realize how lucky I am. I know so many people who don't, and I literally see my grandkids. I don't think I go 2-3 days without seeing one of my grandkids. So I'm very blessed in that regard. So just my family, and obviously just shout out to everybody wearing a uniform. Thank you for what you guys do, both military, first responders, police, fire, EMS, everybody out there putting it on the line for other folks. I appreciate it. Now that I'm on the other side of the fence, I can't tell you how appreciative I am, especially of the local first responders, and then everybody who wore the uniform, will wear it, or has worn it, is a hero to me.
Is there anybody in Las Vegas you'd like to shout out? First responders, the LVPD or the fire, or anybody?
Well, I mean, I got, Vegas Metro is an awesome police department, doing the best to keep the city safe. Clark and Las Vegas Fire out there every day doing it. The ambulance services. I mean, if you get a chance to watch these folks, and if people would just open their eyes a little and not listen to rhetoric, you realize the amazing work these people do. And I'll tell you, as a good kid, as not a good kid, who had many encounters with the police as a youngster. And this was back in the 70s and 80s, where they could put their hands on you virtually retribution free. And I had many a counseling session with law enforcement, right? But having said that, seeing the good that these cops are out there doing, and the stuff they have to put up with, that's been a heartbreaker for me. They do so much good, and only the bad is highlighted. And, so I just think as a society, we need to be a little more appreciative of that. But, that's just me, so yeah, anybody out there doing it, putting it online for other folks, for strangers. Remember, these people go out there and risk their lives for somebody they never met a day in their life. And I don't think people realize the impact of that. So that's it, and just everybody hang in there, man. Love each other, be nice to each other. Stop listening to this nonsense on TV, whether you're right or left. It's all meant to make you feel a certain way. Be nice to each other. Understand people aren't always going to agree on stuff. Stay safe, stay healthy, and just, don't be a knucklehead. The problem, my biggest gripe is we live in just the knuckleheads seem to be the loudest voices. And the average guy just trying to do his thing, he's drowned out. Just all these knuckleheads are on TV all day, and it's just frustrating.
I actually have it on my voicemail to appreciate those when you cross their path. Just say hello, compliment them when you see a first responder. As a matter of fact, I have a page on Facebook called Hugs for First Responders. It's my dream to get it as a nonprofit, because I'm all about whether you're a military first responder or a policeman or whatever you do as a first responder. Even ER, the employees of the ER should be considered a first responder as well.
Listen, I'm in the hospital every day. I mean, my job is basically, I hesitate. People consider me a first responder. I hesitated that, because I'm just an ambulance driver, but my ambulance just happens to be a helicopter. But I'm in the ER every day. I'm dealing with the ER staff. I was working through the height of this COVID thing. So I saw all this firsthand. So there's no doubt those people are heroes as well. And I see them every day. And whether it's medical staff, ambulance crews, firefighters, cops, who I literally come in contact, Border Patrol, because I work in the UMO, which is you know, so we're involved with the Border Patrol. We transport a lot of folks who get injured coming across the border and stuff. So you know, but I never miss the opportunity to just say, hey, be safe out there. You know what I mean? I never miss that chance because, you know, I want them to know that somebody's thinking about them and really want, you know, I want them to get home to their families at the end of the day. So, and I see these people every day. I see the dedication, you know, it's not abstract to me. That's why it's frustrating. You know, you watch a lot of TV and people are forming opinions. They have no knowledge of anything, and they're seeing a soundbite or a clip and whatever. And then they don't, you know, I see these people every day out there, you know, our Border Patrol guys, man, God bless those guys. They are out there, they are in it, and they are getting hammered, and they're getting zero support, and they are getting hammered. And, you know, they're out there every day doing that job, being kind, being good, not mistreating anyone, not doing it, you know, none of that crap, you know, none of that nonsense that gets spun. These guys are out there saving lives. We go out and respond to people in the desert all the time, you know, people trying to get across the border or whatever. And it's a dangerous, obviously very dangerous trip. I'm by the Sonoran Desert out here. It's no joke. You know what I mean? And you know, these guys they're out there saving lives. They treat these people, you know, we're constantly flying injured folks or folks who have heart attacks, children, this, that, the other. These guys call us right away. There's amazing people out there doing amazing stuff that the country doesn't appreciate. And I wish we showed a little more appreciation for those folks. All kinds of different professions, but every day out there doing amazing stuff.
And don't forget our veterans. Whenever I see a veteran that he'll have his hat on, I always say thank you for your service, and I even hug them, and they're so shocked that someone would say that, and it's so important. So especially during the holidays, if you see a veteran, please say thank you for your service. It means so much to them. So anything else, and I'm closing out.
No, thanks, Cindy. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm glad I finally got to meet you, and I enjoyed this. And again, thank you so much, and have a great holiday, or rest of the holiday season. And
thank you.
Look forward to talking to you again.
So just hang tight for 1 minute. I'm going to close out, and then we'll chat for a few. Thank you, Yogi. Wow. Heard him 2 weeks ago on Taco's show, and here 2 weeks later, I have him on my show. So grateful for Yogi, and definitely so grateful for Taco for having him on that show. And next, I have my 3:30 show. I have Frank and Billy. They were crew members on the original Top Gun. Shaka, baby, go out there and make a difference. Live every day in abundance.